Hi there and welcome to History for the Ages, where we bring to life people, places and adventures from the past. This is the first in a mini-series where we will explain how to analyse and use historical sources. Previously we have discovered what sources are, whilst this video will begin with the basics of analysing sources. In the future, we'll address more difficult concepts such as the purpose, audience and context of a source. Let's start with questions. Sources are anything that give us information about the past, and we need to learn to ask the right questions. These can include: what type of source is it? Who made the source? Where does it come from? When was it made? Why was it made? Who is the intended audience? What perspective or point of view does it offer? Is there supporting information from other sources? And can we trust the source? Really, it's all about asking the right questions. Generally, you won't have to answer each one of these questions in a test, but it is important to practice answering these questions so you begin to learn the right way of questioning information. Some teachers like to use acronyms to help students remember these questions. Personally, I prefer to just walk students through the process of questioning, but if acronyms are your thing, then go for it. Some acronyms include TOMACRU, which stands for Type, Origin, Motive, Audience, Content, Reliability, and Usefulness. Capri, on the other hand, is Origin, Motive, Content, Audience, Purpose, Reliability, and Usefulness. Rarely in a test will you be asked to answer all of these aspects of analysing a source, but they're fairly linked together. For example, the usefulness of a source will often depend on its perspective and reliability, but we'll get into that in a later video. Let's start with type. What type of source are we using? There are many different types, such as physical artifacts like pottery pieces, bones, weapons, armor, tools, rubbish, letters, or inscriptions on papyrus or stone. The type of source matters, as some have inherent problems with them. A letter to the editor is always putting forward an opinion, trying to convince the reader to agree with the author's point of view. A propaganda poster from the war wants the reader to, perhaps, join the army or contribute to the war effort. How old is a source? Is it from the time period, or is it well after the event? You may have heard this described as primary and secondary sources. Primary being from the time period, secondary being after. I don't like those labels because sometimes students just assume that primary sources are reliable because they're primary. Cheat note, they may not be. Anyway, the age of a source can link it to a specific time period or society. For example, scientists who discover bodies in bogs in England will try and find out how old the body is because it can give an insight into Celtic society in England at that specific time. The origin of a source is where it came from. This can be a physical origin in relation to location or even type. For example, the type of newspaper a cartoon is found in will influence the perspective or bias of that cartoon. However, the locational origin of the bog body I mentioned earlier will help historians understand British society in that specific area. Lastly, content. This is probably the simplest question. What is the content or information that we learn from the source? It can, however, be more complex if you consider that the content of a source is influenced by the perspectives that it has. Let's summarise what we've learned today. Sources give us information about the past. We must learn to ask the right questions. Acronyms can help us remember the questions that we need to ask. Type means what kind of source it is. Age refers to how old the source is, while origin means where does the source come from. We'll move on to more difficult concepts with source analysis in the next video in our mini-series. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.